Welcome to this week's Stories, Resources, and Ideas, powered by Ideas by Mike. I am, of course, Mark Conway, and joined with a guy who, coming off of last week's incredible story of setting yourself up, it really opens the mind to really think about the whole range of life. And there's no better person to kind of bring that home than Mr. Mike Milligan. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. Man, last week was so inspiring, and now this week with how you're going to follow that up, I just feel like it's putting people exactly where they need to be to live their best life.
Well, I feel like people kind of, are in this idea mindset of, I need to do some planning this time of the year. We're just finished, we're just finishing tax season, right? Where people who got refunds finished tax season months ago. People who have to pay taxes just wrote their last check to the IRS on April 15th, 18th to take care of their federal taxes. And now people generally turn to this point and start thinking about planning. And legacy is, everyone is going to have a legacy. A legacy is what's left behind when you're no longer here. Everybody's going to have one. Basically your legacy is built on what you do every day. Kind of like building a house where you take a brick and you add to it every day.
Yep.
And so your legacy is being built daily. But I've got this great story of someone who kind of took control of their legacy, and they're going to be remembered for a long time by a lot of people because of that. And so I hope I described legacy right. Legacy is how you're remembered, how you're it's just basically once you're gone, how people think about you, talk about you, and the impact you have. We see it all the time where, like on college campuses where you see people's names up on boards or stadiums. And, that means somebody gave a gift to help build that building. We see it just today. I mean, we had, we're going to see an outpouring of spirit in our little area because a nice little deli down the street from us that served these enormous Reubens. We just got word that the owner died of that. And you're going to see a nice little, a lot of people who are impacted by his cooking of a Reuben sandwich that are going to flood out. But really, the legacy is just a daily compounding of your activity. And I've run across so much lately death in just the general conversations. But I had two stories that hit me in the last month. And I'm going to tell one of them, but the two that hit me have a very similar pattern. The survivors who were telling me the story of that person who passed away, they were siblings. So both of the siblings were in their early 50s. One was 51, one was 53. And they were telling me about, when I talk to somebody about death, we're talking about money a lot of times. But I still want to hear the story of what this money means. So both of these siblings had lost an older sibling unexpectedly. And it came as some health issues. But in the thing that struck me about both siblings, and I'll tell the story of Bernie in a second, but the thing that struck me about both siblings is, although they were unexpected to those left behind, the way these deceased siblings lived and prepared was almost as if they knew their time was coming to a quick end. Some of it, I've never had a near-death experience. Have you ever had one, Mark?
I've been pretty close a few times.
Yeah, I've never had it, but I hear people that say that when they have near-death experience, things flash before them. Things that they were going to miss, but also things that they wish they would have done. It's like a good versus evil, right? Things are going to miss versus things I would have done, things I wish I would have done. Well, let me tell you about Bernie. Bernie leaves behind a sister and three nieces, but also two other brothers. But he passed away at 54 years old after a very short, and I mean short, 4-week battle with cancer. 4 weeks. And I mean, I would say that's not a battle. That's getting bombed. Mm-hmm. It's like a bomb just explodes right there, right? And you get that happens, and then he passed away. But he was a diligent planner. Matter of fact, he did urban development in a town in West Virginia. So just every day he was planning, the skyline, how high a fast food restaurant's sign could go, if this road, this access road needed to be here or there. He was working for the city, getting these things in place. And when he found out he had cancer, he quickly told his family that he had it, and he immediately planned within a week a trip to South America, where they were going to go to Brazil and spend a week together as a family. He said, no questions asked. And he told his sister, I want you and my nieces to go. He also invited his brothers. His brothers couldn't make it, but he wanted them to go. And so his last 4 weeks, he spent a little bit of time planning, but then he spent a little bit more time just living with three of his favorite humans in the world, his sister, and he was unmarried. He didn't have kids. So this was his family. So when I met with his sister, and I asked her, she of course tells me about the money he leaves behind and what he wants that money to go for. And I said, well, tell me about him. What was unique about him? And so she tells me about his planning in West Virginia. She tells me about how he never missed a birthday. He didn't miss, and I mean birthday, I mean the birth of his nieces. He was at the hospital, and then he never missed a birthday. Never missed her birthday. Never missed his nieces' birthdays. He believed that birthdays should be celebrated. I mean, it was just, he was a big, I mean, I could see him. I never met him, but he was just this big guy. I mean, he had a big personality who always wanted to celebrate, right? And I asked him, I said, so did he do that at holidays too? He said, no. He didn't think, he's like, holidays is for family, but he wanted on somebody's special day, their birthday, he wanted to celebrate. He said he always did that with me, did that with my daughters. And he said, I'm pretty sure he did that with others too. I just don't know. Anyway, he created this legacy in the town he was in West Virginia for being somebody who cared enough about that town to kind of keep it on a level playing field that one day, I mean, the town in West Virginia is really close to DC Metro. So, I mean, I'm not talking about West Virginia out near the capital or in the mountains. I'm talking about West Virginia that's a little more urban. I mean, it's still country, but it's a little more urban. But he wanted to keep the appeal of that uniqueness of being a West Virginian while still working in the metro area of DC. But he also wanted to create his legacy so that on birthdays, his nieces and his sister would know it. So he plans this trip. Let's get back to why he's still living. He plans this trip to Brazil where they do the beaches, they do some dancing, they go to some festivals and parades, taking pictures all along the way. Matter of fact, the last 3 days, he wanted it to be documented so much, he hired a local photographer to just take pictures of his girls, his sister in there too, and had those turned into a scrapbook that was delivered after his death to his sister. And she said, and so when she was telling me all these stories, I mean, most people tell me stories when we're talking about finances in like 5 or 10 minutes. It was like a 45-minute dialogue of who Bernie was and what made him special. And at the end, I just said, there's legacies are built. Gave her the whole story about how legacies are built. They're planned. And it sounded like he was living in a way that he knew his legacy would be something that would go on for years to come. And so let me tell you what he did with his finances. I mean, single guy, saved money. Well, when you retire, when you die, and you've saved money into retirement plans, and especially when you die early, they become part of this thing called inherited IRAs. So a retirement plan goes into an individual retirement account that is now inherited. And depending on the rules that are out there, I'm not going to go into tax law too much, but most of the time it has to be distributed like over a 10-year period. Well, Bernie left $600,000 in his retirement plan that he wanted to be distributed. Now, theoretically, that should have gone to his sister and his two brothers. But Bernie's like, I love my sister the most. I'm going to just leave it all to her and trust that she does something in my honor for the rest of my life. She also left her. He also left her with a tax burden to deal with. But that's the good thing, is we can kind of clean that piece of it up. That's where the resources and the ideas come in. We can clean that up. So anyway, he dies this last trip to Brazil. When he died, the brothers really regretted not being able to go to Brazil. And so, sister's got $600,000 now. So decide that on the brothers, one piece I forgot to mention was the brothers in this scenario are twins. So they have a birthday. And so she buys them a trip to Brazil for their birthday to celebrate Bernie's life. And so, but their tour guides are going to be the nieces. Okay? The tour guides are the nieces. So you want to talk about this guy, Bernie, planner, an urban planner in West Virginia, who celebrated birthdays, okay, like they were the greatest day on earth, right? And he would take the day off and spend them with his family. This guy was building his legacy throughout his life that was going to be remembered. And the first remembrance of that's going to come in Brazil. I'm getting goosebumps. I mean, I heard this story and I was getting goosebumps. So when I'm telling it again, I'm getting goosebumps again. Bernie's legacy is going to be told through the eyes of small kids about their trip with him in Brazil. They're going to take the same itinerary, and then these young kids are going to tell their uncles what Bernie shared with them through that time. You want to talk about a legacy? We talk about legacy a lot of times with money. It's how much money is left to build buildings on college campuses or stadiums, things like that. But this is a guy who decided that he was going to really be a living legacy, and he took control of that legacy that he left behind. So there are many resources to leave a legacy, right? Most people think that legacy is about how much you leave in the form of an inheritance. Most people think they take legacy and that equals inheritance. Well, the reality is in some point it does. It does create an inheritance. The one thing I didn't mention about Bernie is I told you a retirement plan that left this inherited IRA to his sister. Well, the other piece is that's money he saved over his life. The other piece he left was to his nieces and 4 nephews, because he had 4 nephews also, so 6 kids. Bernie decided that he was going to take a $1.2 million life insurance policy out. Okay, he did it when he was in his late 20s. It was a 30-year term that he paid about $35 a month for. Over the 30 years, he paid about $14,000. But he left $1.2 million that these kids are going to be able to use for education reasons, $200,000 each for their education. He used the concept in creating a legacy where he created dollars that never existed. Okay, that's what life insurance is. Most people think of life insurance as something that just pays off a mortgage, or it pays off a mortgage if you're in a mortgage with somebody, or it provides a little bit of retirement income where or income replacement if it's not there. Bernie used it to create money that never existed. He turned $13,000 of his money into $1.2 million that's going to perpetuate his legacy for his nieces and nephews in the future. And it's a concept and it's a resource most people just don't understand. Term insurance, the basic of all insurance, is low cost for a specific period of time that will pay a death benefit if you die early. I guarantee you, everybody in Bernie's family wishes that he was still alive. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you they do. But I guarantee you I also guarantee that, pardon the French, but shit happens. Yeah. And a healthy guy passed away when he was 55 years old. And that story's not too uncommon to be often, just because, quite honestly, Mark, shit happens. This guy, though, built his legacy in a way not only where he's taking care of his sister through this inherited IRA, but he's also taking care of his family. He built a legacy that was intentional in nature to be able to care not only for his memory and to celebrate everything that's going to go on, but he used the resource of life insurance to create money where it never existed. Right. Because it's almost impossible to turn $13,000 or $14,000 into $1.2 million unless you leverage the power of insurance. Now, there are many people who use term insurance that it goes the full term and then you get nothing. Right? You get nothing. Really, believe me, that's the greatest outcome, is if you buy term insurance, it goes 20, 30 years, and it just goes away. That's the best outcome because you lived. But again, shit happens. And when shit happens, creating money where money never existed is one of the best ways that we turn ideas to money in our job. Mm-hmm. And so creating that legacy is something that's very important. It's that building block every day. But we help people, in Bernie's case, we are now helping with a tax situation and preserving his legacy to celebrate it with his family. But we also help people build that financial legacy that's not there. And the worst, going to a funeral is awful for a financial planner. It's absolutely awful. But it always helps when you're able to deliver to a spouse or a family member a life insurance check that says, hey, this is part of their legacy. They loved you enough that they paid a little bit every month. They took a part of their resources to create money that otherwise wouldn't exist to be able to take care of you going forward. So that's our legacy talk. I mean, as much as we want to say that we're going to live forever and we feel good today, 100% guarantee in life is that we will die. And so how can we build those bricks daily to be remembered and have a legacy that's positive? And then how can we also do it so that the resources we have allow for those behind us to live the life we envision and dream for them? That's Bernie, man. Bernie was a good guy. And I wish I'd have known him. I wish I got to hang out with him.
I mean, I can see why. Thinking about just the way some people, when they hear news like that, shut down. He opened up and then created these experiences and these memories that his family will have of him, especially those nieces, will have for the rest of their lives about how important they were to Bernie. And I mean, just a beautiful story. This is a great opportunity for you to follow the show on Instagram. Follow Mike and his team on Instagram at Ideas by Mike. So pull out your phones, hit up Instagram, follow Ideas by Mike. You're going to hear more stories like this. You're going to get tidbits that'll help you as you're planning your financial future for you and your family. And you'll also get motivational quotes. But most of all, just like he said, you can reach out to Mike and the team through Instagram because that is actually who's answering those messages. You can also go to the website with meetwithmikemilligan.com. That's meetwithmikemilligan.com to reach Mike and the team and set up your first appointment. Talk to him. You don't have to have a fortune already. That's what Mike and his team are there for. Start somewhere and use a financial planner like Mike and his team to help you get to where you're going. Caring is sharing. Share the show out with your friends. This has been Stories, Resources, and Ideas powered by Ideas by Mike. See you next week.